I want to give an update on 1 year of growth in a quarter acre of land in Kona, Hawaii. In August of 2019, I started working on the land and the property, and this is what it looked like about a year ago with not a lot done. And this is about a year on. So I want to give a tour and show the work and the setup for what I would call a ornamental, edible, multi grown food forest. So along the driveway here and along this area, there's quite a few ornamentals. And part of this is to comply with the restrictions of the homeowners association. So that's one of the core challenges in this landscape, is that it needs to be approved by a homeowners association and fit into the rules of the association. So there is quite a bit of ornamental stuff, but at the same time, there is a lot of edibles. So I'm going to do a garden tour and kind of show what's going on. So on the left side of the driveway here, there are some tea plants. That's TI cordyline. And then kind of a common theme that will persist through most of this yard is that there's a lot of ginger, some edible, but a lot of ornamental ginger. So on both sides, there's ginger. But intermixed with all these ginger plants and all the ornamentals are a lot of edibles. And as we go through this, I'll show quite a few of the food plants that we have growing. So as we make our way around the side of the yard, this is west facing. We get closer into the backyard, and on the left-hand side, that's all hibiscus growing. And then in the backyard, that's much higher proportion of edible plants. So there are a lot of coffee plants. There's a lot of fig trees. There's 5 fig trees. So right here on the right-hand side, this is a little section of coffee plants. And then there are little raised beds around that, little boxed raised beds. But the coffee plants have been a fun and interesting little thing to do. They're doing very well. They're extremely healthy. They've been in the ground for about a year here. And we have, on our 3-4 coffee plants, we have exactly 1 coffee bean growing. So it's fine. They've been in the ground for about 8 or 9 months. But that doesn't mean we aren't getting quite a lot of production. So there are 3 figs here that are being grown in espalier form. And this is a white cadota that has been fruiting. So here's a ripe fruit on the plant. We've been harvesting from this tree for 6 months now, and it's not slowing down. The tree just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So intermixed here are quite a bit of tomatoes. On the right-hand side here are some more gingers, but also this is a Japanese cucumber. Next to things like tomatoes here, split leaf philodendron, some other gingers. So there's quite a few tomatoes. This is a collard green that's growing right next to a philodendron, and we have been harvesting a ton of food off of that plant. And it blends into the bed pretty nicely and kind of looks good next to the philodendron. This Japanese cucumber has been producing like crazy. Just did a big harvest the other day, and now we've got a whole bunch more coming on. Then this area is very densely packed. So there's a heliconia right there that we're looking at. But behind that is a row of zucchini that we've started to harvest from. And this is doing really well, and it's just put in a marginal space in between some other stuff. So there's an alocasia, there's more figs, and then some more ornamental gingers, and then an avocado tree with some tomatoes in front of it. So those tomatoes are going to produce some fruit for a while, and then while the avocado gets older. These are two papayas. They are seed grown non-GMO papayas. There is a kale plant, which we've gotten tons and tons of kale off of, a banana. And this is the south boundary of the yard here. So here is an area that is showing that the property is definitely not without its challenges. So this is a pickling cucumber, and it is getting ravaged by insects. We have Chinese rose beetles that have done major damage through the area, and they just devour some plants, including the cucumbers, some of the cucumbers. So I switched back to take a different vantage point coming along the south face of the property. These are red ginger on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, so this is a before picture, actually. This is the way it looked before anything was done a year ago. This is the way it looks now. On the left-hand side here is sweet potato growing in a bed of tea plants. So the sweet potato is acting as both a cover crop and an edible. So I'll start pulling sweet potatoes out of there in a few months. This is the nursery area that's got a ton of fruit trees, a ton of vegetable seedlings. Those are bean crops in beans that are in pots so that they don't get devoured by the insects until they get big enough. My compost bin. And then some more tea plants. And ultimately the cordyline is edible. The rhizome is edible, and in a pinch we could eat from that. This is a taro plant, which is a beautiful ornamental, but also an edible. So I could pull out, if I needed to, I could pull out the bulb, and you can eat the leaves too. It just has to be thoroughly cooked, or you get a little bit of pain in your throat. I learned that one the hard way. But this is the other vantage point coming through. So this back corner, there's a bed here that's kind of intermixed with some ornamentals. There's a Natal plum there. And then in front of that, this little seedling right here is a macadamia nut seedling. I've shown videos before of how I grow macadamia from seed, but this is a little seedling. On the back side of the property here, here's a before on how it looked last year. But these are crotons. Croton on the right-hand side. This is Croton petra, which is just a gorgeous orange ornamental. More tea plants, but like this bed right here is a mix between tea, and this is the whiter plant here is a heliconia. That's a costus in the ginger family, and then we have a honeydew melon, and then some tomato plants in front of that. This is another ginger. So this is a lot of ornamental. This is going to be really beautiful when it matures up, but in the meantime, we can get a bunch of food out of it. On the north face of the property, this is basically just a hedge. This is to protect from the neighbors, who are pretty close on the right-hand side. This is a Plumeria pudica, which is a species, super prolific flowering plant. It just sends a ton of these flowers up all year long for us. We are in Hawaii, so we get pretty nice year-round weather. Here's another Plumeria. This is a hybrid of some type, and I don't know what it's called. It was given to me by a friend. But along the right-hand side here, it's pretty much, at this point, all ornamental. Then we get into this center bed, which we have some heliconias, which are ornamental, and another costus in the ginger family. But to the right of that, this is a little lime tree. So I probably should not be allowing this plant to have fruit on it. It's too small and too young, but I'm being kind of irresponsible, but it's just fun to have them on. If I remove them, the tree would do a lot better in the long run. Here, that's a heliconia. And then there's another fig tree. This is a black mission fig. And behind that is a bunch of tomato plants. These are self-seeded tomatoes that grew from some other tomatoes somewhere else, and birds must have dropped the seeds. And then around that are two lavender plants, and then another lime tree. So that's a thornless Mexican lime. So along the right-hand side here, we have, we already saw this is the north face of the property, sorry, the west face of the property. And this is the hill. This is really the only part that hasn't been done, but this is tomato growing in between the hibiscus, and I've left it alone. There's no reason why I would remove it, because it will produce fruit and it'll be delicious, and in the long run the hibiscus is going to do just fine. And in this area, what I've tried to do is really take advantage of the margins along the edge here. So this is kale and collard green growing directly in front of the hibiscus. And I've just pruned the hibiscus to be sort of narrow to provide privacy against the street. But at the same time, we can have a good yield of food from the area. So I go out a couple of times a week and harvest big bushelfuls of greens from there. This is just on the other side of that bed, and this is a lemongrass. And actually, since this video was taken a few days ago, I pulled some of this lemongrass out because it just grows so intensely. This is an eggplant, and this was grown from a cutting. It's a black beauty eggplant. This is back against the front of the yard where it's really purely ornamental almost. But in between each of these beds, there's just food growing. So this is a purple sweet potato growing. It's just a start, but it'll do fine. And then in a front bed here, there was a little bit of space, so I put in more zucchini. And so far, these zucchinis are a month old from seed. So they've grown this intensely in a month in very rich soil. But we've been harvesting small zucchinis already off of these plants. Really, really nice growth. So this is then entirely the other side of the property. This is the top, I guess the southern southeastmost corner of the yard. And this area here is surrounded on all sides by areca palms, Liptis dipsis lutescens. But along some of the other areas in between, this is an apple banana and then another apple banana there. But growing in between the palms this is roselle, which is an edible hibiscus. So that is growing, just getting as much as we can. And then in the center here, there's a mix between ornamentals and edibles. So these are some date palms, another macadamia nut seedling that is it's doing better than it looks here. It was in a pot for a little bit too long. And then there is kind of a row here of palms and ginger. So this is a ginger in the ginger family. Here's a named cultivar of macadamia nut. So this is a really high quality macadamia nut. It's known as number 344. A good quality one. Here is another costus in the ginger family, and then growing in the center in this place where I'll eventually probably put a mango tree, that is a cantaloupe. Here is another heliconia. It's funny that the camera picks up the heliconias as being really white, but they're not. They're green. It's an odd reflection in the camera. Another roselle, which is an edible hibiscus. Along with some palms. So this is basically the end of the tour at this point. 1 year on, and things are looking, I think, pretty healthy and pretty good. I hope you enjoyed the update, and please tune in some more as we go through the evolution of